Okay, here's another one from the list of movies that we shouldn't have watched as a kid. But here we are. I think I'm fairly well adjusted. Didn't mess me up too much, but it was fun to rewatch this time and understand more about the movie in a different way that I hadn't really paid attention to the last time I watched it, which was ages ago. I might have probably still been in high school, maybe younger. But nonetheless, here we are discussing Pacific Heights. Let's do it. If you were a kid in the 1990s, you only knew Michael Keaton from Batman. I'm almost positive for that. I can bet any amount of money on it. Anybody who was my age at that time probably only seen him. You maybe have seen him in Beetlejuice at that stage. I know I hadn't at that time yet. I only knew Michael Keaton properly from Batman. And so when this movie came around, it was an exercise in orientation of actor and character. So I was young enough where I had really intense feelings about an actor playing a certain character and me falling in love with that character and wanting them to just be that character. So when I saw them in other things, particularly when they were playing roles that were so opposed to how I saw them and what I liked about them, it was really jarring. Didn't make sense to me. And yet I was enthralled with movies in general, so I followed along with it, and this was one of those movies. Michael Keaton this was around the time when I was just becoming, I think I might have been 6 when the movie came out. And I remember going to the theaters to see Batman. And that was my real introduction to Michael Keaton. So Pacific Heights came out maybe a year or two after that. And it was an experience. And yet, I was fully, I didn't root for him because he was not playing a nice character in this movie. But I was like, what the heck, man? This is Batman playing this dude. What is he doing? And also, I wanted justice for the characters who he was inflicting pain upon. So the door is now open to discuss Pacific Heights. What is this movie about? This is about really essentially the worst tenant ever in the history of tenants. And you have Melanie Griffith and Matthew Modine playing a young couple who have moved into this fixer-up home in San Francisco, in Pacific Heights area in San Francisco. And they have invested all their money and everything into remodeling, redesigning the place. They have two rented 2 units below where they would be living, which they would rent out to people to help them pay for the mortgage. And Michael Keaton plays Carter Hayes, who is a man who ends up renting from them. And what ensues is really a scam. Carter Hayes is a man whose work is going from place to place, scamming people, finding ways to become a tenant where he knows all the loopholes, he knows the law enough to play the game to the point to where he can come out on top, even though he's doing not good things. And the movie really becomes about how is this couple going to remove him as a tenant, since legally, after a certain point in time, once he's there long enough, he is by law, he can't just be kicked out. So there has to be there's a lot of hoops that they have to jump through to try to get this guy out of their lives. And what ensues is actually a thrilling story. It becomes a race to see who's going to win, really. That's the story. That's Pacific Heights. Michael Keaton is playing, it was interesting to watch this movie as an adult now understanding a lot more things just in life, and then just tracing what I know about Michael Keaton's career, and some of the other roles that I've seen him play that tap in where he taps into darkness. And I think that once it makes a lot of sense now. So Batman is one of those roles where, I didn't see him in Mr. Mom and any of the comedies he's done. I didn't see One Good Cop at that stage. And but I was aware that initially Michael Keaton was not taken seriously for the role of Batman because he was the comedy guy. As we all know, comedy people, comedians, are not strangers to darkness. As a matter of fact, humor can be a tool to combat darkness. And when I see Michael Keaton in a role like this, and I look at his role in Batman, I remember Desperate Measures, his role in that, and I remember Birdman and Beetlejuice. These roles where there's elements of darkness in them, and then it makes total sense that you can see how he could pull off a role like Carter Hayes. He's like what Bruce Wayne would be if he wasn't rich. So Keaton does a good job, and this is a movie that has just a ton of really good stuff. It's a tightly wound story and has great acting. Melanie Griffith and Matthew Modine are solid. They're really good in this movie, and this is them, really flexing. But it's clear though this movie really, I think, is a showcase for Michael Keaton in a way. This is really about him. He's kind of the main character, and he's the guy who we first meet him in the movie, having successfully, swindled someone, and he's just moved on to his next thing. But we're following him, and we're following our couple. But Carter Hayes is it's just another thing for him, another job for him. So he's on this journey, and frankly, he's winning. And it's, I think, one of the coolest things about movies that do this, where you have a villain. I think Heat does this. Avengers: Infinity War does this as well. There are many movies that do this kind of thing, where you are following characters who are not the best people. They're not really doing positive things in the world. In fact, they're actively doing terrible things. And the story is following them, and it's almost like the people who are fighting against this force they're just obstacles in the way. So Carter Hayes is, again, systematically going through and swindling people out of their money. This is his job. This is what he does. He goes from place to place and becomes a tenant, doesn't pay rent. He exploits all the legal stuff he can, and he can win because the law says that, like, he's not doing anything he's not breaking the law, but he's not doing everything. He's not behaving properly. And so you can understand how good people can become so angry, because they're doing everything by the book. They're trying to do everything correctly, but also that same book is being used against them. And so ultimately, what do you do with that? How you have to take things into your own hands? That's the only other option you're left with. And so this is what happens with other tenants, other landlords, land people, landladies that he's come up against, Carter Hayes has come up against, to where they have to come up and rough him up, but that also doesn't make things good for the land person, the landlord, or whatever it is, because now you've assaulted him, and now you're in deeper trouble. But this is all according to Carter Hayes' plan. He, unfortunately, though, like, I think what for him is that there's always someone who is a harder obstacle than you anticipate. And that's essentially what this movie is. Matthew Modine and Melanie Griffith play that obstacle for him that is yes, they're having a hard time with him. They're factually, it's rough. It's really not, nothing looks good for them, but they don't make it easy for him. And it's that struggle that is actually thrilling to watch. You want to see how it plays out. You have to go like, how does this guy keep getting away with this stuff? And at some point, you do want him to get his comeuppance. And I think at the end of the day, regardless of your feelings on people like Carter Hayes, who unfortunately are real, this film was written, the screenwriter, this was a real experience. I think he had also experienced this, and he wrote a screenplay about it, which became this movie. And that's the scary thing about it, is that people like this are real. There are real people out there who exploit systems, find loopholes, and no, they're not technically breaking the law, but they're not doing things right. This is about how to get the most money. It's capitalism at its worst, because it's just, and it's not personal. But for certain people, it becomes personal, which is what this story is. This is Melanie Griffith's character and Matthew Modine's character. It becomes a personal situation for them, and they have to then act. How are you going to beat this guy? And that's what this movie gives us. It's so interesting to me when I think about what my thought process was as a kid watching this movie, and how more simple it was than it is now, and how also it's more simple now in a weird way. It was simple back then, but it was more simple now. So as a kid, I just thought, well, this Carter Hayes guy, he's not a nice person. He needs to be stopped. What is he doing? It's not nice that he's hurting these people like this. What is he doing? And then as a grown up, I had a different level of disdain for Carter Hayes. It was much deeper. And in that, it's like, well, not only does he need to be stopped, you have to really just hurt this guy, which almost feels purer in some ways than a kid's innocent, oh, that's not right. He can't do that. It's very innocent. And it's true too. There's a purity in that too, but there's also, if you distill it, when you get older, you distill it down to the very essence. This guy is not nice. He needs to pay for what he's doing. Hurt this guy. That's pure too. And as an adult, this is what my feeling was. And again, the cherry on top is, for Carter Hayes, it's not personal. It's just another thing, another gig, until it becomes personal. Now things do reach a quite crescendo in this movie, and I think at that point, as a viewer, you might be sensitive, you might be tempted to turn off the movie at that stage, but I promise you, if you hang in there, those last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it's worth your time. Believe me, it's one of the most exhilarating and thrilling and perhaps even cathartic climaxes in a film you'll see in a while, but you be the judge. This is a movie that I actually I recommend to watch. If you're looking for just a good old fashioned, just good movie, good thriller. It's tight. There's no fat. It's a straight up situation. Pacific Heights is a good movie. I think it's a good movie for that. And it was a good watch this time. I hadn't seen it in years, and it was really, I was reminded of how actually solid this movie is. That's one thing I love about revisiting some of these movies I saw as a kid, because as a kid, I couldn't understand the greatness of it. I was enthralled by the story and taken with it. So I was, it felt like it was an exhilarating experience, but I couldn't really appreciate the layers. I appreciated so much more about it now, understanding a little bit more about like the legal system and how it works when it comes to tenants and landlords. And when you have bad tenants, what can you do as the landlord to make that not be a bad situation, and and how much worse it can get. It feels like it's so dramatic, and it's a movie, and yet there's people like my old landlady had bad tenants, and so she told me some horror stories, and so it's not that. This is the one thing about movies like this, is that it's not that crazy when you know that people like Carter Hayes exist, and that there are people who do who just intentionally do messed up stuff for no good reason other than the fact that they just want to do that to get money because they can, because whatever the reason is. And watching it now, I had a deeper appreciation for that kind of thing. And it's also just a good movie. It's well made. It's well acted. I think give yourself a chance to check out this quality movie from the 1990s because it's pretty good. And Michael Keaton is good too. So he'll make you feel some things that I don't know if you felt in a while. Which reminds me, though, there's another movie I want to talk about that I will talk about. I saw recently called I Care a Lot, starring Rosamund Pike, and I think she plays a similar character spiritually. And there's a lot of hate for this character, and so it's weird talking about this movie now after having just recently seen I Care a Lot. I have some things to say about that movie. We're going to get into that, but that's it for Pacific Heights. But if you've watched this and stuck around, thank you for your time, and come on back. Some more reviews coming up again real soon. But in the meantime, I'm getting out of here. I'll see you later. Have a good one.